Hello and good evening. I'm Melisa Idris. Welcome to Consider This. This is the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. In the recently concluded 2023 ASEAN Para Games in Cambodia, Malaysia para athletes won 50 gold medals, 38 silver and 34 bronze, bringing Malaysia to finish fourth among the 11 countries who took part in the Games. Now, despite securing an impressive medal tally, it remains evident that there is a lack of public awareness for para sports. How do we move towards equal recognition and support for para-athletes in Malaysia? Joining me to discuss this further, I have retired First Admiral Datuk Subramaniam Raman Nair, who is the Secretary General of the Paralympic Council Malaysia. He's also the Chairperson of the Administrative Committee, which is responsible for the management of the Council. Datuk Subra, thank you so much for joining me on the show today. If I may begin by quoting the Youth and Sports Minister, Hannah Yeoh, she had attributed the lackluster performance of Malaysia's non-disabled athletes in the recent ASEAN Games to what she said was political instability, and that had resulted in an inability to execute necessary planning and strategies for sports development. But yet we saw our para-athletes achieving such an impressive medal tally in the ASEAN Para Games. What do you think contributed to their success? How did they manage to do so well?
Thank you, Mel, for having me on this show, and I'm glad to share some experiences that we have in Cambodia in the last month. Basically, what happened in Cambodia, I will attribute it to our athletes. They walk the extra mile to deliver what they're supposed to do when in Cambodia. And I do not want to compare our sports with the SEA Games sports because they are what do you call in a different playing field, and we are in a different playing field, even though the sports sounds, the name is para badminton or badminton, but the whole it's been played by different athletes with different abilities. Man, don't forget this, our athletes, para athletes, they have not only their disability to overcome, they also have got to be good in the sports that they have indulged themselves into. What was the success? What was the magic that happened in Cambodia? I must say that it goes to the athletes. They really proved themselves well, and they did what they're supposed to do, because they went through a very, very stringent selection process. All right, this time. If you saw that the Paralympic Council took the onus of announcing the target, not the minister. We took the responsibility. The success or failure of this whole mission, we will take the responsibility of it. So that being the case, we had to put in a very stringent selection process in place. All right. There's no chuti Cambodia kind of issue here. Everybody goes there for a mission. And
I'm glad that you said that, because the magic that happened in Cambodia had to start way before that, and it had to start in Malaysia even before the selection process, down to the identification and the development, the incubation and the training. Can we talk a little bit about the Paralympic ecosystem in Malaysia? I want to understand better how particularly the Paralympic Council Malaysia is supporting athletes with disabilities. How do you identify, para-athletes and then incubate that talent till they can achieve that magic in Cambodia?
Thank you, Matt. I'm glad you asked that question, because talent identification by itself it's a difficult word to understand. You wouldn't be able to identify a talent just by looking at them, or if you cannot specify the parameters correctly. And it's even more difficult for disabled athletes because not all disabled athletes can be trained into any sports, because you must understand disabled para sports. There are three types of disabilities as when you're talking about para sports. They are mentally challenged, they are physically challenged, or visual. So these are the three impairments that we call physical impairment. That means their body, some parts of their body are missing, they are short stature or whatever, or they have the visual disabilities, or they are intellectually challenged. Their IQ is below 75. They didn't go to normal school, they went to special schools. So these are the three main categories of disabilities that are allowed in para sports. So if you want to identify talents in this from these three group of people, you must know certain people with certain disability, they cannot play certain sports because it will be a danger to themselves, and it will endanger others as well. So an able person can do any sports that he thinks wants to do. But for us, we cannot allow a disabled person to go into certain sports. So that being the case, when we go down to identify, sometimes when you want to say you want to nurture people, groom up a person, you identify them young. But in our case, in para sports, normal person gets into an accident, loses one leg or so, and then he joins us for sports when he's 25 years old. So his starting point is different from a talent whom we have nurtured from the beginning, who was born with some disabilities. So there is some what do you call challenges here, And also when you talk about disabilities, some people when you talk about visual, some people's vision goes from bad to good, or from good to bad. So, when you recruit them first, when you identify them, they have got certain, um, they are, their vision is minus, let's say, below 5%. But, and they go into certain category of sports, they only can be trained in that particular sport.
Okay, all right. That seems like there are a lot of variables when it comes to ensuring the talent pipeline for para athletes. How then do you take these variables into account when making the selection, for example, for the ASEAN Para Games?
Okay, and of course, going to the ASEAN Para Games, they have been in the pipeline for at least 2 years to 3 years, because because they are representing the nation. It's not Para Sukma, it's national games. In this case, they are the best. Only the best goes out to represent the country. So they have already gone through a system. That means that talent identification process is already over. They have already been groomed by the National Sports Council, MSN, put into a program as national athletes.
Mm.
So they have got specific structured training programs and periodization, right? Because athletes, you have to make sure that they peak at the right time.
Right.
So we put them through a process. The coaches know best how to understand, and then so the athletes who went to Cambodia, they all have gone through easily 2 years minimum training.
Okay. You also mentioned a bit earlier that there are some sports particular to para sports. Can you explain a little bit some of the differences between non-disabled sports and para sports?
Okay, certainly. I mean, let's say if I say for the blind, for those visually impaired person, we have a thing called blind football. All right, and then people ask, how do you play football when you're blind? Well, there's a little bell inside the ball. So when they kick the ball around, the sound, that they can hear. So blind people do play football. Of course, the rules adjusted, and then the goalkeeper is a person who can see. So there's some modification to the rules. So it's different from football. When you say football for people understand football in a different way. All right, so that's blind football is there. And
Correct.
then if I say volleyball, you might think people standing and spiking and jumping, but we have what you call sitting volleyball. People who cannot stand, who are wheelchair bound, they play volleyball, but their sports called sitting volleyball, and their net is much lower. So these are all
Okay.
some of the differences from able sports and sports for the disabled.
Okay, so you know how Malaysia has been trying to achieve this gold medal in the Olympic Games, right? And the hopes have been pinned on badminton. When we look at the Paralympic Games, we've already got 3 Paralympic goals already. Should we be shifting, or 6, excuse me, 6 Paralympic goals already? And the events that were won, that these goals were won in athletics and weightlifting and swimming, all of that, it's vastly different from where we are grooming our talent in the non-disabled sports. Do you think we should be shifting, or is it 2 completely different categories when it comes to talent development and training?
Well, we have won 6 gold so far to date. 3 in Rio, all 3 in Rio were in the athletics part, 100 meters, short put, and as well as a long jump. And then we had another 3 in Tokyo 2021. Again, a long jump again. Datuk Latif got his 2nd gold medal. And badminton, we got 1 for badminton. And Boni for
Weightlifting.
weightlifting, all right?
Yes.
So as far as we are, I mean, from our assessment, the areas that we are, where we have our strength and where we are focusing, is correct. And we focus on athletics and we focus on powerlifting, and yes, we got the goal. And of course, badminton. Badminton was introduced for the first time in Tokyo. Before that, they never had para badminton. So it was introduced first time, and we are glad Chalik how brought back the gold medal. Of course, we lost 1 gold medal due to some default. If not, we would have had 4 gold medals. That was our Ziad who lost the short put, but
Yeah.
he's good for Paris anyway.
Okay. Well, talking about Paris, tell me a little bit about the preparations for Paris 2024.
Yes, Paris is, we got about a year to go. So definitely we will be sending a team. We are now going through a process of qualifying. Our athletes have got to qualify for a place in Paris. It is not that I want to go kind of a thing. You have to get a slot. So for that, you have to, first of all, you have to meet up with the minimum qualification timings or whatever it is. Secondly, you are ranking wise. If they are, if they have 20 places, you must be in the top 20 to go. So for that, we are sending our athletes to as many competitions as possible, those sanctioned ones, which will qualify them to a place in
Okay.
Paris.
Can you share with us a little bit about the intensity and the rigor of the para athletes training to achieve their peak performance? What goes into their daily training?
I mean, you see, the handling para athletes is it's multiple. It's a complex issue. Now, first of all, as I mentioned earlier, uh, they have to overcome their own disability first, and because they're born with some disabilities, they have to manage that first. After that, they have to master the sports, and then you have your emotions to manage. There are many aspects of things that you have to manage athlete. So I think the person who plays a key role here is always the coach. He is usually, the coach is the closest person to especially a para athlete. I'm sure it is the same in the able athlete as well. But there's a special bonding between these two, and then they know each other well, in the sense that the coach also knows how much he can push this person to, because don't forget they have got some disability, they are on medication, or they have got complex things that you cannot push them too much because you might aggravate their disability. Yeah. So we had to be very careful handling these people. And of course, our institute, Sukan Negara, ISN, they play a very important role in making sure that the correct medical um, precautions are taken so that the athletes do not cause injury to themselves.
Are there persons with disabilities within the management system of para sports in Malaysia? Are they represented at the management level, at the Paralympic Council level, at the Majlis Sukan Negara level?
Yes, at the Paralympic Council level, we in our constitution we have spelled out very specifically there must be there are five vice presidents. Of one of the five vice president must be a from the disabled community. It can be all. The president can be a disabled person, but the minimum it must be must be at least one disabled. It is in our constitution. It is also in the constitution of most of the para associations. Uh, and MSN, I believe they are a lot of coaches I know I've seen in MSN who are disabled from the disabled community. They are former athletes actually who have now become coaches.
Okay, well that's good to hear that they have, from being athletes now are being coaches, because if you remember not too long ago, Datuk Subra, there was a story that went viral. Para swimmer Ko Lipeng, she had won the country's 7 gold medals in the ASEAN Para Games during her competitive tenure, but she wound up selling tissues on the street. And I'm just wondering what support systems are there to assist former para athletes in their transition to life after competitive sports.
Well, as a coaching is one pathway, career pathway that we always offer to. But not everybody can be a coach. Not it's just like being a teacher. Not everybody can teach. You can be a super duper 10A student, but you cannot be a teacher. Some of them are not made out. You don't have the qualities to become a coach or something like that. So, and some choose their own pathway in the sense that they want to focus, like the lady who is selling tissues in Bukit Bintang. We have offered every other agencies has tried to offer, government agencies has tried to help her, but she prefers her forte. Her forte is selling tissues in Bukit Bintang. It's not that she has been forgotten. She is there. So what I'm trying to say is very simply, some choose their own way to further their life.
Are there ways to better support? I'm just wondering whether, and this also happens to non-disabled athletes as well when they transition out of competitive sports, but whether para athletes are disproportionately impacted as they no longer are within that competitive sport ecosystem, that elite athlete ecosystem. Do they have the skills? Are there mechanisms? Are there grants, financial support to help them?
Yes, certainly. We have once you become a national athlete and all the thing, there's also an educate system for them to advance their education academic levels. We also have got what you call business opportunities for them to indulge themselves into. And retired athletes, YAKIP is there, which looks after the welfare of their athletes if they are in dire need of any assistance and things like that. So there are many ways a person can be helped. Um,
Is there enough government support for para sports and para athletes, regardless of whether they actually make it to the international circuit?
well, the difference came about since 2018, I must say. The former uh, ministry of sports minister, where he made you get if you win a gold medal in Paralympic sports, you get $1 million. All right. Last time it was not the same. Able got more and Para got less. But ever since the law has been changed,
Okay.
so
Is that
everybody gets 1 million.
is that the same for funding allocation for sports training and development? Is it the same for para sports and non-disabled sports?
That's one thing we are what do you call you see our para sports is getting traction only up in the recent years. So it was very much you know Paralympic Council was only formed in 1989. So and if you talk about that, and we don't have at Paralympic Games, we have only about 22 sports. Whereas Olympic Council or OCM, they have been there from the 50s, and they handle about 30 to 40 over sports. So they have got a bigger pool of sports to manage, and we have much less. And we don't have that many athletes as well. You know, uh, I mean, 15% of the population in this country are supposed to be from the disabled society. And this is a WHO statistics. In Malaysia is 14.2%. So that means our pool is smaller. Pool is smaller. The sports is much less. Yes, we don't get that kind of funding uh, as what the able body gets. But nevertheless, the ministry is conscious about these things. They are putting things in place, and I'm in the board of the National Sports Council as well. So I do present the case where appropriate funding that must be given to para sports. It is there. It will take time, but we are definitely moving in that direction.
So then, can I ask you what changes you would like to see? What improvements you would like to see to ensure that there is the necessary support, that support is equal and inclusive, and the recognition is also equal and inclusive?
We have, see, there are many agencies that are involved in para sports, many NGOs and all the things. So what we need to do is to get together and get our act together, and to because we don't want funds to be allocated here bits and pieces all over the place. We need a consolidated effort. All right, if you want to do a talent development and at the grassroots level, we don't want 10 people going hunting around for talents. The 10 should get together and move, and in that way the allocation that is available will be well spent, and the government and the provider of those funds will have confidence in the system that they have in place is working. So I think it's more of getting our house in order first before.
Right. Well, we've got a year to Paris, so I guess we'll check in closer to the date before the delegation leaves for Paris. But thank you so much for speaking with me. That was my conversation with retired First Admiral Datuk Subramaniam Raman Nair, Secretary General of the Paralympic Council Malaysia, wrapping up this episode of Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris, signing off for the evening. Thank you so much for watching, and good night.